Dog of Bay, a game about dancing dogs basically, finally got an English translation recently by Hilltop Works, who already did great translations for games such as the Doctor Slump PlayStation 1 game, Racing Lagoon, or the Maid Uniform and the Machine Gun, and more. I would recommend checking them out since they translate so many different games, there's bound to be one you will end up loving. This game was the first game made by Caviar, a company most people probably never even heard of, or only know it for maybe Drakengard, Nier, or the two Resident Evil railgun shooters on the Wii. They are the kind of company that I sorely miss in modern times, one that just makes so many different games without really being the master of any genre. But playing their games, you just feel the passion behind those games, even if they may end up being some of the worst games you have ever played, like Bullet Witch. They don't make bad games to make a bad game, they make a bad game for more than that. They make bad games to create art that is valuable to some people that connect with them. Or maybe I'm just looking too deep into it. Objectively, their games may be janky, extremely low budget, and just not very appealing, but none of it matters when the person playing them feels an extra specialness in their games. And I did that with many of their games. I tried like the first two Drakengard games, Soccer Life 1 and 2, the Hajime no Ippo game for the Wii, or even Bullet Witch, and now also Dog of Bay. Since I sneak in at least one hot take into all of my videos, I have to drop one here. I don't really like the original Nier, and Automata almost even less. Please don't hurt me, even though I'm a masochist, so I would like that, so go ahead. Is Dog of Bay a bad game? Not really, but it's also not a great game either really. It's a game that will maybe stay with you though for its uniqueness. It's the musical Cats in video game form, but instead of cats it's dogs. Even though I kinda wish it would be cats instead, because I like those more than dogs. But if we go with what I love the most, then the game would have been Bunny of Bay instead, because I think bunnies are extremely underrated animals, but especially when you turn people into bunnies. There's just not that many video games with humanoid bunnies. At best you get girls and boys in bunny suits, which isn't that bad either, but it's just not the same. Not a furry by the way. The story is simple. Camus or Camus, the Dalmatian dog boy, was in a relationship with Sarah, who I do not know the breed of. I also only know the breed of Camus since it's such a popular one, and they got those cartoons about those 101 doggies, which I always thought is way too many dogs. Having a few is fine, but you don't need over 100. But when you're rich, you can do just anything you want in life. It's just a bit unfair to the dogs. You can't really give the same amount of love to so many at once, even if you got tons of love to give. So now they are kinda not together anymore, but you just know they still got feelings for each other, and Sarah fools around a little bit with Johnny, the bad doggy boy who knows he's just being used by Sarah, so he's not totally committing to her. Good going on Johnny though, but I still feel bad for him. The story is just told through these tiny little CGI cutscenes in between some songs, and all in all they are only like around 3 minutes without the intro. They really reminded me of the ones in Drakengard 1 though, so I wanted to check which studio did them, and the studio behind the ones in Drakengard is called Anima, which was founded in 2002, while this game came out in the year of 2000. So I beat the game and checked the studio called Trilogy, which is listed under CG production in the credits, and I can't find it. If you Google it, you just find the Trilogy animation group that does the VeggieTales show, and I don't think they worked on this. If you type in CG Studio Trilogy Japan, you also find nothing because Google sucks nowadays. But anyways, not like it matters. Maybe I also just suck at trying to play detective. But just look at this cutscene, it just looks beautiful. And not just because of the hot dog girls, there's just something about this kind of CGI. Or maybe that's just my inner boomer speaking, and I wish we could return back to those days. Gameplay wise, the game is kinda a nightmare. Especially as a person who sucks at rhythm games. You play the game by using 4 buttons, but actually it's 6 buttons, but the game doesn't really tell you that, unless maybe you own the game physically and can also read Japanese to read the manual, which probably explains the use of the L1 and R1 button, which are used to activate tiny, kinda hidden note things that even when you know they exist are still super hard to get the timing right. But back to the jewels. You control those with the up and down button on the D-pad, and with triangle and X, triangle is up and X is down, obviously. So when do you have to press the buttons? When the shining jewel is at the end of its shininess basically. Like the little circle around it has to hit it, and then you hit the button. I'm just so bad at explaining things. Even worse than my old math teacher, who I still blame to this day for my really bad math skills. It totally wasn't my fault. You can kinda also look at the left and right, those blue lines that have those big notes lined up, to see how many notes are incoming, because you will kinda not need it at first, but the last song in the game sung by Sarah is such a huge difficulty spike that it's almost funny. I stumbled my way through basically all songs while only failing once or twice, but suddenly the game throws so many notes at you that it's almost impossible to tell what's going on down there with your jewels, so you really need to look at the left or right to see how many notes are incoming, and even then it will still be hard. And you know, when you lose, you have to redo the whole song. And even if you finish a song, sometimes it still isn't enough because songs require a specific rating. Got a 79%? Gotta have to do it again if you need 80. It took me like 30 minutes to get to the last stage, and then the last stage took me around 90 minutes. So it's a really short game too, which isn't too unusual for a rhythm game that tries to tell a story. Guitar Woo Man is one of my favorite games of all time, and that also just takes about an hour. Not every rhythm game is something like Guitar Hero or Muse Dash, sadly, with its amount of songs. Obviously I would wish the game had 20 more stages, but yeah, it doesn't need them if it tries to tell its own story. You can also try to beat the game on hard mode, and that will give you even more game time. I didn't bother with it though, because that would have murdered my fingers and self-confidence. By beating the easy mode though, you also unlock a big head mode though, or a big upper body mode. Useless, but sometimes I miss those silly unlockable features in video games. Also, if we talk a bit more about the story, the world also seems cruel to those dog people. They are still being kept as pets despite being so humanoid, which is just kind of fucked up, isn't it? You can read up the backstory of these characters when you go into the 3D viewer, and it tells you a bit about their life before they ended up at Permanence, which is the name of the club. These two just walked after a human who gave them a hot dog and ended up here instead, somehow. Then in comparison, you got Beth, who had a human family that adopted her with a daughter who got ran over by a car, and the parents then forgot to feed Beth because they were so shocked they totally forgot about their humanoid dog girl. So instead of feeding her herself, she just went away, and it makes me think, why not just take some food for yourself? Are you not allowed to do that? Will you get punished? Do you not have any rights? In the ending of the game, it's also implied that most dog people would say the outside world is awful towards them, so it seems like instead of being treated like actual humans who look like dogs, they are just treated like dogs. Especially when you look at Paul's backstory, his whole family basically got kidnapped by humans to keep them as pets. Such is life as a dog though. I'm depressed now. If you got a dog, please take good care of it, or any other animal. Presentation wise, the game surprised me for such an early PlayStation 2 game. Obviously the backgrounds are not very great looking and really bare bones, but the character models, they must have looked next to gen back in the day and still look great to me. Imagine coming from the PlayStation 1 to these kind of models that can act out such dances. Sadly, when you play the game, you must mostly focus on hitting the notes and can't really pay too much attention to the dances, but after finishing a song, I would recommend checking out the dances because they're just so well made. I also think it puts off this dog human kind of look really well. There's just something about it, not a furry by the way. It just makes me wish I could be a dog boy too, with a nice owner, even though I would prefer to be a bunny boy. Obviously, an important thing about rhythm games is the music, and this has a good mix between a bit of pop, rock, any kind of music you would expect from a classy nightclub. I'm really not an expert on music, so I can't analyze it well, but it just fits the game, and despite being such a small unknown game, it has tons of well-known Japanese voice actors singing the songs, like it got the voice actor of Frieza from Dragon Ball, and even the absolute legend Hironobu Kageyama, who sang Shala Het Shala and We Got a Power, the two absolute best Dragon Ball openings ever, and tons of other Dragon Ball songs. I feel a bit bad for Americans that they never got such awesome songs for the dub. Here in Germany we had the same songs, but well, with a German singer, who was also great though. I bet most of the budget went out of the window to get these famous people, and then a bit more for the CGI, and then you got like as much money as I have left on my bank account for the rest of the game. I also thought maybe a bit more story will be revealed in those songs themselves with their lyrics, but not really. How can I tell despite not understanding Japanese? Because despite the songs in the game not having their lyrics translated, you can go to Hilltop Works YouTube channel, and on there all these songs were translated so you can see the English lyrics to them. All in all, the game is certainly an experience worth experiencing. Especially if you like rhythm games. If you don't, then maybe watching a playthrough is a better way to check it out, so you can really soak in the atmosphere of the dances themselves. In the end, it begs the eternal question, what is a bad game and what is a good game? A question that can't really be answered. Some people will see this game and think, wow, this looks weird and dumb, trash. And some will see it and deem it as interesting and like it. Always remember those wise words from Macklemore, one man's trash is another man's treasure. That's just how it goes for most things in life. Like some people will enjoy the video and some won't. But if you did, you can leave a like and maybe even subscribe if you want to. I would say it's saying these words, but I guess you gotta do it. Even though nowadays people always put it at the start instead of the end. But yeah, have yourself a good one and good night or good morning, regardless where you live.